Slow doesn't mean dumb. We've all heard of the story of the tortoise and the hare, and back then we recognized that the steady approach of the tortoise was a lot better than the lazy, overconfident approach of the hare. But funnily enough, nowadays it's the hare's tactics that are prized by everyone. We privilege speed and being quick and equate that to being intelligent. However, the truth is that actually, as a slow learner, you're probably a lot more of a hardworking individual than most, and you're used to putting in double the effort that you need to, which is a huge advantage in itself. In fact, some of the highest achievers that I know admit to being slow at studying and learning. And after speaking to them about what they do to study effectively, I've compiled 8 tips that you can implement now to improve your studying as a slow learner to get the incredible grades that you want. Tip number 1 is to sharpen the saw. Now, I read this from a story mentioned in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but it really stuck with me. Let's suppose you just walk past someone who is relentlessly chopping down a tree. You go up to them and they start complaining about how hard it is and the fact that they've been at it for hours. So you suggest, why don't you take a break and sharpen that saw? It'd probably go a lot faster that way. They give you a weird look and reply all huffy and puffy. No, I don't have time to sharpen the saw. I'm too busy sawing. And that is the mistake that slow learners make as well. We just keep pushing forward with the work, crucifying ourselves for spending too much time on one thing, instead of taking a step back and sharpening the techniques that we used to study on a daily basis. You need to ask yourself, what am I doing right now? How am I doing things? Are they helping me? Am I retaining and learning things properly? The amount of time that I spent understanding and perfecting every part of my learning process, it's borderline psychotic, yes, but it's better to zoom out and make sure that the way you're studying, the techniques that you're using are effective, rather than just doing everything the same way and have nothing go in despite you putting all this effort. Tip number 2 is to add variety to the repetition. On the days that you feel slow, you may well just have to repeat the things that you're studying a lot before having it go in. And that's okay. Repetition is actually very important. In fact, when I spoke to my friends about this, most of them said that when they're stuck, they resort to repetition of whatever they're learning, because at the end of it, maybe putting in the man hours might be the only way to actually get through all the work that you need to do. What a lot of these very intelligent people actually suggest is to add variety to the repetition. When you're repeating something, do something different every single time. And I agree, if you have to repeat it anyways, why do it the same way? Why not read through all of it first, then the second time you repeat it, watch a video. The third time, maybe test yourself or make mind maps. The fourth time, maybe ask a friend to discuss it with you and fill in your knowledge gaps. I mean, there's so many ways that you can do this. Adding variety to the repetition will expose you to different ways of learning, and it'll make you experiment with the best ways of revision that suit you. But more importantly, it'll make the work that you're doing a lot more interesting and speed up your understanding because you're processing it through all these different mediums. Tip number 3 is about the magic of drawing. In medical school, they ask us to draw all the complicated drug pathways and their diagrams on the board because it helps simplify it. And as awkward as it is in the moment because everyone's looking at you, it does really help in the long term. And even when I'm struggling with anatomy, I force myself to draw the structure out because, again, I genuinely know that it will help me remember it for much longer if I draw it. In fact, there was a study on undergraduate students who were asked to actually write down what they knew about scientific concepts like isotopes or electrovoltaic cells, while the other group was asked to draw what they knew about these concepts. And the results were that the people who visually represented these concepts through a drawing or diagram were able to recall almost twice as much when they were tested compared to the people that just wrote down definitions about these concepts that were given to them by the lecturer. It's because drawing requires us to grapple with what we know and reconstruct it in a way that makes sense to us. In uni, everyone has iPads these days and they just sit and draw on that stuff. It actually looks really fun. I'm low-key jealous. But yeah, visually representing things that you learn is a really good method to understand things as a slow learner. Tip number 4 is about the bite-sized learning strategy. If you feel like you're genuinely too slow at taking information in and remembering it, then another thing that will definitely help is breaking things down, breaking the content that you're learning down into smaller chunks. And I know everyone says it's important to do this, and even the teachers nowadays break their hour-long lectures into 4 15-minute videos. They're not tricking anyone. And as annoying as it is, you can't really argue with how effective it can be to do a smaller task. Similarly, dividing up all the content that you need to learn into chunks paces your learning out as a slow learner. You're not overwhelmed with all the content that you have to take in. You prioritize one concept, one paragraph at a time. And this really does help avoid repeating things for no reason because you focus on that one point a lot and you understand and you take it step by step in that way. For example, even when I was editing these videos, I learned all of it one by one, chunk by chunk. I was learning to color grade first, then I learned how to add B-roll, then I taught myself how to edit the audio audio, all of it was bit by bit. And I wouldn't have been able to do it this well or this quickly if I hadn't broken it down into those bite-sized chunks. Tip number 5 is creating recall questions. This is my favorite way of tackling any content that I need to study, and I think it'll benefit and improve anyone's learning process regardless of how slow or fast you are with your revision. The main thing that I will do when I'm trying to process any amount of information and learning it for the first time is that I will convert that information into questions. If I'm going through the lecture slides, I'll have them open on one side and I'll have a document of questions open on the other side. I'll be going through the slides, reading through the bullet points, going to pre-made notes for more detailed understanding, and converting any important information that I find into my questions. This ensures that while I go through the content, I'm understanding everything to the best of my ability, because I need to understand it to actually create good questions. And the reason I create these questions is so that I can test myself in future revision sessions, so that when I come back to review these slides with this topic, I can go through these questions, answer them one by one, highlight them red, green, orange based on my understanding, and essentially review what I know without using any resources. As a slow learner, if you're actively putting in this effort to test yourself, you're strengthening your understanding of whatever you're learning, and you'll be remembering it for much longer, compared to if you just only read through or summarize that content. Learning isn't really about what goes in. Counterintuitively, it's more about what comes out when you test yourself. Tip number 6 is the concept of overstudying. This is something that I've been doing more and more, and it's basically this idea that you have to study challenging concepts in 3 times more detail than your exam requires you to. And yes, it's ironic that this is coming from me. I'm someone who loves the 80-20 rule. I do what's important. I figure out what I need to know to get that broader understanding, and then I move forward. This is not something that I'd usually be talking about. But on the days that you're studying stuff and nothing's going in, overstudying is kind of the only way to ensure that you properly understand everything and don't just memorize stuff because you've spent enough time on it anyways. Why not just quickly memorize what you don't know and move forward? Instead of thinking like that, go deeper into the topic, learn the specifics, ask why, and look into the actual fundamentals of what you're learning. For example, if I was learning about HIV and I was finding it difficult to grasp, instead of just looking at the life cycle of HIV or how to manage it, which is what I need to know for my exams, it would serve me a lot more if I looked into the immune system, infections, and how our body responds to them. Putting in the extra time to overstudy the basics, building on that, that's how you build a good foundation. So that the next time that you come across anything even related to that topic, you will know how to tackle it because now you have that good baseline foundation. Tip number 7 is to touch base when you're drowning. When we inevitably reach the stage of feeling stuck, staring at the book when nothing is going in, what most people do is that they just take a break and go on their phone for like 10-15 minutes. But that doesn't help. What actually does switch you on and turn you back onto the content is backtracking. What I do is that I flick through the lecture slides or the book, whatever I'm doing, and then I figure out where I understood something properly. Once I'm there, I will readjust and go through the content in a different way, whether it's testing myself on the questions I made earlier or watching a video, whatever I can do to switch it up and maybe learn and process what I'm doing in a different way. And if that doesn't work, then yeah, take a break and go on your phone for 5 minutes. Tip number 8 is the fact that sleep changes it all. Everyone that I spoke to about slow learning and revision in general said that how they revise really depends on how much sleep they got the day before. How fast they are, how slow they are, their mood, all of it is affected by their sleep. And everyone admits this, especially in uni, when sleep is something that no one cares about. We want to prioritize work and social life, and that's what we do all week. We pull all-nighters, there's a lot of going out that happens. And we all know that sleep is important, but what really sold me was this book by Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep. I definitely think you should read it because it is a great book. I'm not going to go into it right now, but let me know if you want me to make a video about it in the future. Apparently there was an experiment done on a group of people that tested their mathematical ability when they were given a task. But the catch was that this task had a secret pattern that would lead that person directly to the solution. And what happened was that twice as many people who got nocturnal or daytime sleep, whatever it was, got the answer right, got to the secret answer. Twice as many as the people who didn't get any sleep at all. So at the minimum, you have to believe that something does happen when you sleep. You piece things together, you learn a lot faster the next day, and there's a lot of benefits to your mood, your discipline, and overall your concentration as a slow learner. But the way you make sure that you don't lose any focus at all when you're studying, regardless of how slow or fast you are, is by checking this video out right here. Thank you for watching. I really hope this helped. I'll see you in the next one.